Hello, my fellow audio slaves, and welcome back to the Corruption of Colton podcast. This is episode 21. So yeah, today we are reviewing the debut album by Rage Against the Machine Soundgarden supergroup, Audioslave, and their debut album, well, it's a self-titled Audioslave. Now, Audioslave was a supergroup when guitarist for Rage Against the Machine, Zach, left Rage Against the Machine to form Audioslave. Some other members would go with him, and on vocals, they would have Chris Cornell of Soundgarden front the band, and they would go into studio to record the debut album, Audioslave. Now, I wasn't really that big of a Rage Against the Machine fan. I'm just not that big into Rage Against the Machine. I haven't listened to their music in a while, so after this episode, I might go back and listen to some Rage Against the Machine albums to refresh myself. Sometimes music tastes change. I mean, I used to not be a big fan of grindcore metal. You know, bands like Napalm Death, I just wasn't really into grindcore at first. But then, as I got older, I'd say about a year ago, I really got into grindcore. I don't know why, but now I'm really into bands like Napalm Death and Carcass, which I wasn't really into. I just didn't like the vocal style, or I just didn't like the grittiness of the instrumentation. I don't know, but I got to really like it. In fact, I really didn't like heavy metal at first, to be honest with you. I really didn't. I hated heavy metal when I was younger. I just only liked pop, like I liked bands like One Direction and stuff. And then when I got older, one of my classmates, Karen, she would listen to AC/DC a lot back in middle school. She would play the song Back in Black quite a lot. So I got really into AC/DC. I really developed an ear for AC/DC. So then I started listening to other AC/DC songs on YouTube, like Highway to Hell, TNT. It's about, what's that song called? The high voltage song. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. That's the song. See, even singing it out loud reminded me of the title. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock. That song. And then songs like She's Got the Jack, Rock and Roll Singer, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Whole Lotta Rosie, songs like that. I got really into the Bon Scott era AC/DC. And then I just started checking out other bands similar to AC/DC, like Airborne. And then the first real rock band that I got into was Nickelback, because I had heard Nickelback on the radio a lot growing up. How You Remind Me was everywhere, right? So I'm on YouTube listening to just other rock songs, and I hear How You Remind Me. I hear the Never Made It as a Wise Man, I Couldn't Cut It as a Poor Man Stealing, Tired of Living Like a Blind Man. And I immediately remembered, it clicked. I was like, I know this song. So then I started listening to more Nickelback songs like Rockstar, Saving Me, Far Away. And I was at first listening to the lighter Nickelback. But then I got into some of the heavier stuff like Sight of a Bullet, Feed the Machine, The Betrayal Act 3, Burn It to the Ground, This Means War, Edge of a Revolution, some of the heavier stuff. And that was my journey to really liking heavier music. It starts out light. You start out by listening to light hard rock, and you slowly ease your way into the heavy shit. Like, I soon found bands like Theory of a Dead Man, Hinder, 3 Days Grace, which were playing music in a similar vein to Nickelback. But then I started easing from hard rock to metal. So the first metal band I found was Metallica, because that's usually everyone's first metal band. So I heard stuff like Enter Sandman. From there, I started listening to heavier stuff from Metallica, like the album Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All, and Justice for All. I listened to the four main Metallica records, and I fell in love with songs like Harvester of Sorrow, Battery, Welcome Home Sanitarium, Trapped Under Ice, Fight Fire with Fire, Ride the Lightning, Hit the Lights, Seek and Destroy I really liked. So, I was listening to tons of those bands. And then I started listening to Megadeth because I found out that Dave Mustaine was in Metallica. So then I was listening to songs like Peace Sells, Wake Up Dead, Mechanics, which was basically just their version of the Four Horsemen. And I liked the Four Horsemen a lot. So I really liked Mechanics. I liked The Skull Beneath the Skin, In My Darkest Hour, Set the World Afire, Hook and Mouth. I really liked the Rust in Peace album. That was the first real thrash metal album I got into, with songs like Holy Wars, Take No Prisoners, Tornado of Souls, Dong Patrol. Rust in Peace, Polaris, Poison Was the Cure. I really got into Rust in Peace. And from Megadeth, I got into Anthrax, which had songs like I Am the Law. And just the whole album, Among the Living, is just a masterpiece from Anthrax. Then I got into Slayer with albums like South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss, Rain and Blood, Hell Awaits. I really got into some of that stuff. And then after I discovered the Big Four, I started listening to other bands that were similar to the Big Four, like Testament, Exodus, Death Angel, bands like that. And I really got into that. Then I noticed that there was a thing called death metal, and I was listening to things like Cannibal Corpse. And, I was listening to things like black metal with bands like Immortal, things like that, and then at first, at first I would listen to bands similar to death metal, and I heard grindcore. I heard bands like Napalm Death, and I was like, I don't know if I really like it. Then one day I decided to give it another chance. I heard the debut album by Napalm Death, and I was like, this is really fucking good. So, that's like my musical journey to liking metal. I feel like you can't just put on any metal album and like it. I feel like you have to get used to the raging guitars and screaming style. Then you can listen to heavier metal. It's easing your way into it. It's like riding a bike, I guess you could say. You start by riding with training wheels, and then you take them off and you're able to balance it. Or it's like driving a car. You first have your parents in the car with you, and then soon you're driving on, like, not abandoned roads, but like parking lots. You're just riding in like those empty parking lots with your parents, or riding in the neighborhood, just riding around your local neighborhood while you're learning how to drive. Then soon you're on suburban roads, and then before you know it, you're on highways. You know what I mean? It's about easing your way in. And that's how I feel metal is. But maybe that's just me. I'm just telling you my journey to loving heavier music. And I still love stuff like country and pop, because that's what I grew up on. I grew up on stuff like Tim McGraw and the Dixie Chicks and stuff my parents would play. And there were a few rock bands I liked as a kid. Like, my parents would play a lot of Bon Jovi when I was a kid. My mom really liked Bon Jovi, and my dad really liked Van Halen. So I knew some bands, but they weren't really heavy rock bands. They were more of just like, they weren't soft rock bands. They were just, they were hair metal. So I was kind of cool with like the hair metal and glam metal bands. I just wasn't really into the heavier stuff until I got older, and my brother really helped me get into it. Then I started and I'd say I really got into it because I really liked the guitar styles. I really started to like guitarists like Dimebag Darrell of Pantera, or Zakk Wylde of Ozzy Osbourne, or Ace Frehley of Kiss, or Eddie Van Halen from Van Halen. I started to really get into these really cool, groovy guitar players that had very unique styles. You know what I mean? I really got into that. And that's really how I got into metal music. My love for guitar players even made me want to learn how to play. So, that's my journey. So, the point is, for all I know, I might start liking Rage Against the Machine. I might even review an album on the show. Sorry, I had a hiccup. I might even review one of their albums on the show, for all I know, because I might really like it. So, anyways, enough of me rambling. I've gone on for way too long. Let's get into this album. This album opens up with the lead single, Code Cheese. Now, there's actually some pretty interesting facts about this song I found. A lot, actually. So, Cochise was an Apache chief born in 1812, according to Songfacts. Audioslave guitarist Tom Morello came up with the title based off the vibe of the music, says Song Facts. He was actually reading about Cochise at the time, and Tom Morello was actually quoted saying, and I quote, "Cochise was the last great American Indian chief to die. When several members of his family were captured, hung, and tortured by the U.S. cavalry, Cochise declared war on the entire Southwest. He went on an unholy rampage, a war to end all wars, if you will. He and his warriors drove out thousands and thousands of settlers," and Tom Morello said, "This song just kind of sounds like that." There's a little bit more information on him that he included, but I don't want to read the whole thing because it's kind of long, but you get the gist, you get the basics. So he says, this song kind of sounds like that, and I can kind of hear it. Yeah, I kind of hear it. And it also says that the lead singer for Audioslave, who's also the lead singer for a grunge band, Soundgarden, says that this song the lyrics are about judging someone. It's basically about judging and taking aim at someone who's wasting their life away, and the person that's wasting their life away is themselves. So the song is basically about looking in the mirror and realizing that you're wasting your life away. I think that alcoholism is definitely a part of what they're doing to waste their life away, because I hear a lot of alcoholic references in the lyrics. And so I think it's pretty good. I can't relate to it on the, wasting your life away side. You know, I don't really feel like I'm wasting my life away, and I feel like I don't really know anyone who is. But I like the instrumentation. I mean, this kind of sounds like Rage Against the Machine, but it also kind of sounds like Soundgarden. You can hear the influence from both bands, and I'm not a big Rage Against the Machine fan, like I said, but I'm a big Soundgarden fan, and so I can look past it. I really like the Soundgarden influence that I'm hearing from Chris Cornell. It seems like he kind of had some influence over the instrumentation as well, and I really like this song. I think it's pretty good to listen to. It's a good lead single to start your band off with. It's a nice dark song. That's what I really appreciate about it. I really like dark, brooding rock songs, and this one's definitely a pretty dark song about judging yourself, so I enjoy it. Show Me How to Live is the second track on this album, and it's a song about asking for help from God, saying that God has created us, but now we require his guidance. And there's actually a few different religious references in this song. The main one being the lyric, "Another Nail in My Hand," which is a reference to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ thousands of years ago. Now, the reason this song is very special to me is because I'm still trying to find my religious identity. You see, I lived as an atheist for a while, and I'm only now starting to come around and find my religious identity and my relationship with God. So this song kind of really, I guess you could say, really helps me in a way, or connects me with God and Jesus Christ, because I'm just not fully there yet, and I feel like I can really find a religious identity through music. And I think this song helps me on my journey to finding a religious identity. And I think that my best way to find a religious identity is through music. You know, most people read Bible verses or go to Bible studies or go to church, but those methods don't really work for me. Christian music is really where it's at for me, because I feel like with music, that's how I relate to a lot of things. So I feel like the best way to introduce me to something is show me the way through music, and I think that's how religion is for me. Music is just my way through it. I feel like I just have my unique way of going through things in life, and my way of going through things in life is a musical adventure. And that's just the special, corny side of me, that music gets me through things in life. It gets me through my depression. It gets me through my anxiety every day. It even gets me through just regular daily tasks. I just can't do things in silence, or things just feel too quiet or boring. Like, literally today, okay, I was at work today, and while I was sitting there, I was sitting next to my coworker, and we were working on things. And for a minute, I had paused music to focus on something. And despite it being me and my coworker, none of us said anything, even though she was literally sitting to the left of me. But it felt like she wasn't there, because like the room just felt so silent that when another coworker walked into the room, it just broke the silence in this way that was just so damn awkward. It felt eerie. Like, it felt eerie. Like, a coworker pops their head in, they ask us a question, and I'm like, oh God. Because it got so silent that just the sudden burst of noise just feels so eerie. And silence to me is just eerie in general. Like, I just get freaked out by silence. There's just something creepy about it. Just, to me, there's just something about silence that makes my skin crawl. It just feels weird. You know, for me, there has to be a podcast on in the background, or I need to have music on, something. I just can't work silently. Okay, unless I'm like really focusing on something, but for the most part, during my work day, or going for a walk, or taking a shower, there just can't be silence, or I just get terrified, I get anxious because I'm just triggered by silence. There's something that gives me anxiety about a room being quiet. So often what I do when I'm working is if I'm at work, I have my phone and I, like, not too loudly, but like in the background, I've got music on. If I'm cooking something, there's music on. Like, we have an Amazon Alexa in our kitchen, so, you know, I'll be playing music, or I'm playing it on my phone, or when I'm at work making food, because I go to like this work type school thing where you learn how to be independent as a disabled individual, and it's a workplace and a school. So like while I'm cooking and learning how to cook, I can't cook in that class in silence. So, you know, I usually have on soft rock or blues or metal or pop or country. I've got something on in the background to just get me through that. Even today when I was working there, you know, again, like I said, I actually had some blues music on, but when it paused, the room felt way too quiet and creepy when I turned off the blues music. When I'm showering, the sound of the water goes on, but also I just like the noise of like music. So, you know, I've got music on in the shower. I have this Bluetooth speaker that you can take into the shower. It's meant to get wet. Like, its purpose is it's a shower speaker, and I love that thing to death. If it's not charged, I'm really sad. So I make sure to charge it when I know it's getting low on juice. And I also use music when I'm doing work at home when I'm working on this podcast, when I'm not recording and I'm editing it. I have a CD on in the background because I have a CD system. If you check out the Colton Nichols YouTube channel where I post all these podcasts on YouTube, I did a tour of my Philips Bluetooth speaker stereo system, which plays CDs and other functions, which you can check out. But I put a CD in there. The speakers you can turn it up or turn it down. It can get as loud as like one of those garage stereo systems. You know those neighbors that play music so loud you can hear them with your windows closed? It gets that loud. I have that thing and I love it. I don't blare it that loud unless I'm home alone, but you get the idea. I am that one neighbor that you will throw rocks through their window at. I'm the one neighbor that you're going to want to throw rocks at because I just love music too much. If one of my neighbors is listening to this, do your worst. Throw a rock through my window if you must. But I love music too much. You'll be paying for the damage of my window, by the way. Anyways, yeah, I just love music too much for there not to be music on. Or a podcast. I love podcasts. In fact, if you can listen to this podcast while you do stuff. If you're doing your laundry or something, just get through your day and listen to me talk about music. And even check out the music that I talk about. I highly recommend every album that I review. Anyways, I went on a little tangent there, but this song helps me develop a relationship with God. Music and this song itself. And it's just so damn catchy. I just love it when Chris Cornell just sings, Show me how to live. It's very melodic. It's very fun to just sing along to that line. So this song is a plus. To me and others, this song is about growing to hate your depression. It has been noted that Chris Cornell has written songs about his depression before, so it does not seem like a far fetch. And if that's the case, I can definitely relate to this. I have definitely grown to hate my depression at times in life that I decided to get help because I hated feeling miserable. You know, when I had depression, I would not want to leave the house. I would go months without wanting to go anywhere. I wouldn't want to go out to dinner with my family or go to friends' houses. I would push myself to do these things, yes, but I just wouldn't have a good time doing it. And you shouldn't push yourself to do something you don't want to do. And I got tired of pushing myself to do it. I thought, I want to do these things. Oh man, that's a tongue twister to say. But, you know, I want to enjoy doing things. So I think the smartest thing I've done in my life was sign up for therapy. I think getting a therapist was the greatest thing that I've done in recent years. So with a combination of therapy and finding a hobby, I have not cured myself of depression. I haven't ridded myself of it. It's not gone, but I have successfully reduced the amount of stress and anxiety that I have. It's still there, but it's gone, but it's less common. And I've reduced the amount of times that I feel sad just by a combination of therapy and finding a hobby. And I think this song is about hating your depression and wanting to find happiness again. And I know what it's like. You know, I really wanted to feel happy. And so I did the work to get there. And I think I've done great. You know, now I have therapy every week where I discuss what I'm going through with my therapist, which really helps. If there is something stressing me out, mainly finances. And I have found the hobby of this podcast. This podcast really helps with my depression and anxiety. This podcast really gets me through. So does music, just listening to music every day while I'm in the shower or going for a walk or in the car heading somewhere like to work. It's just very soothing for me. If I'm on a train going to see my girlfriend, you know, I want to listen to music. Also, spending time with my girlfriend relieves stress. But you know, there's so many things that do. My hobby of collecting CDs, I have a CD collection, if I've mentioned this on the show before, really helps. I'm actually going to do a video, I'm pretty sure, online, which you guys will have to check out when it comes out. I'm going to do it at the end of this year, in the end of 2023, where I show off the CD collection. I'm not done growing it for the year, and I won't be done growing it for many years, but at the end of each year, I do want to kind of do an update on it. So at the end of this year, I'll give you an update on just how many CDs I have, what albums I have. I actually have put out a video showing you what I use to play my CDs, and I showed one of the CDs I have. So definitely check out that video. The YouTube channel is Colton Nichols. It's where I post the podcast episodes. I changed the name from Corruption of Colton Podcast to Colton Nichols because I post both my podcasts on there. But I'll leave a link to the channel in the description. I've done it in the past. I'll put the link today when this episode is published. But yes, that is how I've gotten through my depression and overcome it and what I think this song's about. So let's move on. What You Are is a song about having a friend or a potential partner and loving this person so much that you want to do everything in your power to make this person happy. Just wanting to do anything you can for this person, but this person taking you for granted and just not appreciating you enough. And I can definitely relate to this. This is one of my favorite songs to listen to from this album because I have definitely been taken granted for a lot in my life. You know, I've had partners that have taken me for granted so much. I've had ex-girlfriends that did this and then they would cheat. I had an ex-girlfriend named Jennifer who cheated on me and with multiple men, may I add. And then after the relationship ended and I left her for her infidelities, she would constantly try to contact me through Instagram or Facebook, telling me that she misses me and all the great things I did for her and how nice I was to her and how much I loved and appreciated her as a person, and how all her new boyfriends just treat her like shit, and that I am the only one who treated her nicely. And I say, well, you should have thought of that before you cheated on me. I mean, I hate to say it, I know it sounds weird, but I'm like, you should have thought, when you were cheating, you should have thought about the consequences. Before you decided to cheat, you should have thought of the consequences and repercussions that this would have. And that's the conversation that I have with all my cheating exes. Whenever one of them tries to get back with me, I tell them that they should have been aware of the consequences and aware of the repercussions in the first place. And that you taking me for granted and you facing the consequences of it are no longer my problem, and you need to figure out to deal with this on your own. I would recommend getting therapy or something, but I cannot help you through this because I'm not the one who cheated, right? So I think this song is definitely about taking someone for granted. I've had friends that have done this as well, and then friends telling me that they wish that we were still friends, and I say, I wish we were friends too, but you did some unforgivable things, right? So I think this is a pretty good song, and it does a pretty good job at capturing what being taken for granted for is like. Chris Cornell is definitely a great songwriter and an incredible vocalist. He is perfect for Audioslave. Like a Stone is actually one of the songs that I remember hearing from this album before I even got into rock or metal. You know, I actually just remember this song being on in the car on the radio because my parents used to play the radio a lot in the car growing up, so I would hear songs like American Idiot by Green Day. So for context, I was born in 2003, so I was hearing rock songs from the late 2000s and stuff on modern rock radio, so I was hearing things like Green Day, singles from like Blink-182, Fall Out Boy was pretty hot at the time. So you were hearing all kinds of like these modern post-grunge bands, right? And one of them was Audioslave. I remember Like a Stone being on the radio. As soon as I heard the drum fill opening to this song, I was like, wait, I remember this song existing. Because I remember in the early to mid 2000s, this song got a lot of airplay. And I'm like, wait, I remember this. And when I researched it, I realized this charted like number 31 on the rock charts. And I'm like, that's why it charted pretty high as well. And also, I did not know what this song meant. It's a lot darker than what I perceive, obviously, because when I heard this when I was a kid, I did not know what this song meant. So it's a lot darker than I thought. I thought it was a pretty innocent song as a kid, but actually this song is about contemplating death and where you go after death. It's about the philosophy that you die, and if you were good in your life, instead of going to heaven, you will go back to somewhere that you thought was really cool. You know, you'll get to go back to relive, I guess, a moment that you really enjoyed in life, which if that's true, when I die, I want to go back to the Wisconsin Dells when I die, right? You know, Wisconsin Dells was a vacation I took as a kid with my parents and sister and brother. We did it as a family for like 3 years in a row, and then obviously we just no longer had the budget. Vacations are expensive. They got more expensive over time, but I remember as a kid, we went to Wisconsin Dells, and I loved all the parks, and I loved all the water slides, and I loved the wave pools. So if I could go back, I want to go back to just riding down those water slides and sitting in the wave pool on this tube thing, you know, just swimming around in the water, right? I want to go back to that time in my life when I die. But yeah, I think this song is pretty good. It's a pretty good song. It really makes you think about your life. You know, it really makes you think about what can happen when you die, and it really makes you think about your life decisions and really makes you contemplate life decisions you've made. So it's a pretty good song for making you think, I must say. Set It Off is one of those songs that has a lot of ideas. When I went on to the Song Meanings website, where I get a lot of my information and do a lot of research on what the song might be about, a lot of people say this is about Christ, but I don't think this is true, personally, just due to the fact that Chris Cornell is not known to be a very religious person, and he wrote most of the lyrics for this album, including this song, and he's just not a very religious guy. The only song on this album that I think might have a religious correlation is obviously the second track on the album, You Gave Me Life. Aside from that, I feel like this album more focuses on darker topics, and I think this might be about the communist revolution. Obviously, I think this because of some of the words from the speech, including "set this fucker off," are used as a lyric in this song, and also Rage Against the Machine is known to write these kinds of lyrics, so I do think that maybe, because Audioslave is basically Rage Against the Machine plus Chris Cornell. Rage Against the Machine broke up in the early 2000s, and then they formed, the three remaining members formed Audioslave. And all they needed was a new frontman. They didn't want to go on with Rage Against the Machine, so they formed Audioslave with the vocalist of the grunge band Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, who we've been talking about as the vocalist throughout this album. So, I think that the way this song was written it was written about the revolution, which is a topic that Rage Against the Machine covered a lot. So I think that the three members of Rage Against the Machine and Chris Cornell wrote this about the communist revolution. Anybody who's listened to Rage Against the Machine knows that that band had a lot of opinions on a lot of things, including this communist revolution. They had some popular and some unpopular opinions, which they would write lyrics about in their songs, so it does not seem that far of a fetch that they would write about the communist revolution on this record, and I think that's what this song's about. And I love it, by the way. I have nothing against a song writing about the communist revolution, as controversial as it may be, obviously, because of the rise to power from the communists. But I do think that this song's really good because it has this... I don't know how to describe the opening riff, but I'm going to try and explain it anyway. The riff is like this guitar riff that's going in and out from clear to distorted, and I love it. 1 second, the riff is pretty clear. You can hear it pretty clearly, clear as day, and then it just like fades in and out, and it's suddenly really distorted, and it does this throughout the opening of the track before getting into the vocals and all the other instruments, and I love it. I love just how eerie and disturbing the riff sounds because it's going in and out. It almost sounds kind of eerie and almost a little disturbing, and I love it. I love songs that use their instruments, especially guitars. I love when guitarists utilize their guitar to make a sound that's a little eerie and creepy. I love it when they do that. So this song is great. Shadow on the Sun has got to be another one of those big favorites of mine from this album, personally. Personally, I can just see right through this song. I know exactly what it's about in my heart. Like, obviously I don't because I didn't write it, but like what I mean is I just have a good faith belief that I know what this song is about. I just have a feeling in my heart that I know. Because I feel like I could see myself writing something like this. So I believe that this song is about knowing your partner so well that you know what they're thinking. You can read their thoughts and just know exactly what they're thinking about, what they need, you know, when you're helping them. You can help them through anything. You always know what they need for help, and you're just always there for them, and you're always by their side, right? But then that said relationship of just being so in love fails, and you feel like all you can do is die alone because there's nothing else out there like that person, and you're just a shadow on the sun now. And I can totally relate. Not to that, but like, I love my current girlfriend so much. Like, I feel like I know what she's thinking, and I feel like she always knows what I'm thinking too. It feels like we're almost interconnected with each other. We can feel each other's pain and feel each other's problems and just see each other's needs. I feel like we have that intertwined connection, so I totally know what it's like to love someone so much that you're almost interconnected. In fact, I want to tell you a little funny story is a few weeks ago, I couldn't sleep, right? And it was really late at night, and she texts me on Messenger, and she's like, "Why are you still up?" And I'm like,
how the hell did you know I haven't fallen asleep yet? I haven't even texted you. And she said she just felt an instinct that I couldn't sleep. So it's things like that that make your relationship feel special, that you can just, your partner can just know something without you even having to tell them. And I think that's what this song's about. Your partner just knowing everything about you to the point that they know when something's wrong. You don't even have to tell them anymore. And I think that's what this song's about. Obviously, the song, though, goes about into the territory of what it's like when you lose that person in that intertwined connection. But I don't know what that's like because I've never had a connection that deep until now, and I haven't lost that connection. But I understand what the song's about. I think I really know. And I know what it's really like to have that intertwined connection. I really love this song. This has got to be one of my favorite ballads of all time. I should make a playlist of just my favorite love ballads of all time, because this would be right up there. I guess it's more of a breakup ballad, but it's close to a love ballad. But I know that I'm going to make a playlist of my favorite love/breakup ballads, and this will be right on the top of the list.
I Am the Highway is an amazing Audioslave song that I highly respect. I just can't help it but respect this song. Now, personally, it's not really my favorite Audioslave song, to be real. Don't get me wrong, I like it. I just feel like other songs on this album are stronger, but I respect it. Don't think that I don't respect it, because I do, because I know what the song's about. It's about recognizing your self-worth and realizing that you are the highway in your life and nobody can control you, not a partner, family member, friend. This song's actually about knowing your self-worth in a relationship and not letting a partner control you and run the show. And you know that being in a relationship, either a friendship, romantic relationship, coworker relationship, nobody is meant to be superior or run the show, you know? It's about being equal, right? You know, it's about understanding that nobody should, no one can control somebody. No one's superior or in charge of you. I mean, yeah, your boss is in charge of you at your workplace, but you get what I'm saying, know your self-worth. Don't let someone tie you down and tell you what to do and just control your every move, because you're your own person. Don't let anyone make decisions for you or tell you that you need to do this because I think you need to. You should, if you want to go with the decision that someone thinks that says you should go with it, then you should also want that decision. People can suggest decisions for you and make suggestions, but if someone is just flat on making the decision for you and you're not thinking for yourself about how this decision is going to affect you, then you should. You should at least be making your own decisions and not letting everyone's other opinion of you or decision that they want to make for you affect you. Think for yourself, right? I think that this song is powerful. I highly respect it because I think that it is really important to know your self-worth, and that's a journey that I have gone on. It took me a long time to understand that I need to realize and know my own self-worth and not let everyone control me and tell me what to think or do, right? So I understand the journey that he's singing about here. It's not that it's not powerful. It truly is. The lyrics are powerful. The singing is empowering. It's just doesn't speak to me, I guess. I support the message, and I've even gone through it in life. I just feel like other songs have done it stronger, in my opinion. I feel like there's other songs about self-worth that are stronger. I feel like this one just kind of blends in with a lot of other self-worth songs. I'm really sorry to say that, especially because Chris Cornell's dead, I really wanted to just put on a face and say this is the greatest song about self-worth there is, because I have such high respect for Chris Cornell as a person and songwriter, and him being dead, I don't want to disrespect his works. But I can't just lie about my opinion of a song just because I highly respect someone, right? I do want to be honest in my reviews. So I'm going to say this song is not my favorite. I think that there's stronger Audioslave songs, but I do think that this is a song worth listening to, and I don't skip it on the album. I think it's still a good song, and I still listen to it. I just think that other songs in this album are stronger. And I hope that everyone can
respect that. I respect your opinion. If this is one of your if you think this is the greatest Audioslave song of all time, go for it. Believe that. Don't change your opinion of this song, right? Just like how I don't have to change mine, right? So, just love the music that you love. That's what to get out of all this. And know your self-worth, of course.
I saw a man. He looked a lot like me. I saw him in the mirror and I thought him in the street. When he turned away, I shot him in the head. And then I realized I just killed myself. That is some of the creepiest, most eerie, and just some of the best songwriting if I've ever read a song. That is some of the best songwriting if I've ever read any. It's just amazing. I think that this song is tackling the feeling of paranoia. I think it's about being paranoid about how you see yourself and how you just want to kill yourself and beat yourself up because of just paranoia. I'm guessing this is from the perspective of maybe a schizophrenic. I mean, some of the lyrics are also about like seeing yourself in jail and things like that. And some of the lyrics, and especially in the first verse, I really think this song is about schizophrenia and paranoia. And if so, I'm all here for it. I don't have any experience with paranoia and schizophrenia, but I'm very interested in the topic. I actually want to go to college to be a therapist or a social worker, and I want to take some classes on schizophrenia and paranoia and what paranoia does to the brain, because I think it's very interesting. I can totally see this song being about someone imagining they killed themselves out of paranoia. I think that that's what that's tackling. I really think that when you're paranoid, you will see so many things or imagine things that didn't even happen, but they feel so real, right? Like, I think it's very interesting how the brain can give us such eerie hallucinations, right? I think that it's very interesting how the brain can really fuck with you. I think that that's very interesting. And so I think that this is a very interesting song for that fact. And I just love the song. I think that it's a good hard rocker. Chris Cornell's just singing his heart out. The drums are great. The guitar riffs are great. You can kind of sing along with it. I especially sing along to that really creepy line. I think that this is just a great song. I believe this next song is about wealth and sharing your wealth. I think that it is about greedy rich people who often keep their money to themselves and commit tax evasion to keep their wealth out of the country or out of the government and away from helping the others in the world. I can see why people would think this is about loan sharks, however. The lyrics are very vague. I've read that a lot of people think this is about loan sharks on the Song Meanings website, and the lyrics aren't their strongest. I will say they're very vague. Let me read you these lyrics here real quick. You got everything you wanted. You've done everything you planned. You can make your load a little lighter. All you gotta do is share the wealth. And what really brings it all home for me is in the chorus when they say, oh no, don't keep all your good luck to yourself. It really rings in the point to me that this song is about greedy rich people who don't want to pay any taxes into the education system or Social Security or homeless shelters or anything that can help other human beings because they're greedy motherfuckers who don't want to help anybody and all they care about is making money. You know, that really bothers me. Some people think this is about loan sharks, like I said, which I can totally believe. Especially in the lyric where where Chris Cornell says, let me make you an offer, right? You know, it really sounds like a loan shark for sure. But I'm going to have to go with the side of the internet that says that this is about greedy rich people. And I definitely am 50-50 split on greedy rich people because the thing is, on one side, I say, well, it's their money, right? You know, who are we to tell them what to do with it? But at the same time, taxes exist. And tons of people in this country need help. And, you know, people like me, I'm actually visually impaired. I'm disabled. I've talked about it on the show before, and it's hard for a disabled person to get a job. So we sometimes rely on government assistance, Social Security benefits to help us get by sometimes. And some people say, oh, well, Social Security is just disabled people being lazy. Not true. Sometimes it's because people in the workforce are assholes who don't want to hire people just because they're disabled and don't want to give them a chance. So it's not always because we want the Social Security money, but because we have no other option. Maybe if the workforce wasn't so ableist and a bunch of business owners weren't a jackass, then maybe we wouldn't be relying on Social Security so much. So if there's any business owners listening to this podcast, if a disabled person walks into your establishment looking for a job, don't deny them based on their disability. Come up with an actual good reason, right? Be more kind and courteous. Disabled people are human beings as well, and we just want to work and contribute to society like the rest of you. People complain that disabled people don't... This is what pisses me off. People complain that disabled people don't contribute to society. But you don't let us contribute to society, you dumbass. You know, people are like, oh, they don't contribute to society. Well, they don't contribute to society because you don't hire them. Going in the workforce is a way to contribute to society. You complain we don't contribute, but then you don't let them contribute. You don't hire them, so they don't contribute because they can't. People can't just get a job just by walking into a place. They have to be hired. They can't just walk in Monday morning and they work there now. Is that really how you think jobs work? So, that's just like what pisses me off. The comment that we don't contribute to society, but the reason we don't contribute is because you don't allow people to contribute to society. So, my whole point is actually guide it. Instead of talking down to a disabled person about not contributing to society, guide them through contributing to society. Guide them through the workforce. Help them get a job. Guide them through. If you're an employer, you can hire someone and guide them through the job instead of talking down on them. That's all I'm trying to say here. And the thing is, if you're a rich person, I guess it's your money at the end of the day, but you should be out of the kindness of your heart putting money into Social Security and all these charities just because you want to be a good person. That's why you should do it. So I'm going to say that greedy rich people aren't greedy because they make money. They're greedy because they're ugly on the inside and they don't want to help people and all they care about is their money. That's what makes a rich person ugly on the inside, because they only care about their money and not others. They're not ugly because they make money. They're ugly because of what they do with their money. Anyways, enough with my rant. Let's move on to the next song. Bring 'Em Back Alive is one of those songs that's much harder to translate. This is probably the hardest song for me on this album to describe or understand. I've read ideas of it on song meanings websites, but I just don't agree with any of them. This song is just really unique. It's much more dark and brooding. It definitely reminds me more of like metal almost. This almost kind of reminds me, they're more of alternative rock, Audioslave and Rage Against the Machine and all that. But this kind of is in the heavier direction. It almost kind of reminds me of Soundgarden, because Soundgarden had much more darker, brooding songs. And this definitely sounds like it was more Soundgarden based, because there's more influence of grunge and metal in this song. Soundgarden's not metal, but this song definitely has more metal riffs. You can definitely tell it took more influence from metal and grunge here. I love it though, because most of the songs on this album are more alternative rock. This definitely took a more darker direction, and I really like how the guitar and bass complement the dark and brooding lyrics here. Usually in rock and metal, bass usually just accompanies the song most commonly, and you don't really hear it as much. You more hear the guitars and drums, but in here, it feels like the guitarist and bass player are working together to make a unique sound with both their instruments. You can hear the bass and the guitar more, and it kind of sounds like they're playing the same note together to kind of make a unique sound, and it's really, really good. It sounds fucking amazing. I love this song. And I love the effect on Chris Cornell's voice. He almost sounds more like robotic and tuned, almost like what they do to Ozzy Osbourne's voice these days. Obviously, Chris Cornell does not sound like Ozzy Osbourne. That's not what I'm saying, but if you think about it, when you listen to Ozzy Osbourne's vocals have always had this more robotic sound to them. And Chris Cornell sounds a little more robotic. So he doesn't sound like Ozzy Osbourne, but he sounds Ozzy Osbourne-like. Like, he's got that Ozzy Osbourne vibe going on, I feel like. I'm guessing I'm the only one that feels that way, but if you do feel that way, comment below wherever you're listening to this. You can leave a comment about it, usually on Spotify or YouTube. Usually you can leave a YouTube comment, but this definitely reminds me a lot of like an Ozzy Osbourne vocal effect, and this definitely reminds me more of like a metal song than alternative rock, and I'm all for it. I love this song. This song's great. It's dark and brooding, both vocally and lyrically and instrumentally. I love this song. Definitely one of my favorites from the album. Light My Way is a song about a man who has not accepted the existence of God his whole life, until he dies and faces God and asks him to light his way. And I can kind of relate to this. No, I have not died. I am not a ghost recording this podcast. I'm not a lonesome soul. I am not recording this from purgatory. But I can sort of relate on the level that I lived as an atheist for many years, mainly because I just never had a positive relationship with God before I decided to take the journey of a relationship with God myself, because as a kid, my parents would push the belief of God and Jesus Christ way too much down my throat. I felt like everything, every conversation, every decision I made had some connection to God, and I felt like, can't I just have something in life that's mine that I can enjoy without having to hear about what God thinks of it, right? You know, I grew up with, would God like that you listen to metal? Would God like that you did this? Would God be happy that you said this, right? And it became so exhausting that I was atheist for a while. And my parents would go, you can't be atheist, you can't be atheist, it's a disgrace, it's disrespectful to this household, and that only made you want to be atheist more. You know, it's that thing of, for someone to be Christian, you need to wait until they're ready. You need to let someone find their relationship with God themselves. You can't push it onto someone or force them along. It's only going to make them resist, like I did. So I would say you need to respect someone's religion, or you need to respect someone's religious choices, even if lack of religious choices, because they need to make those decisions themselves. And it wasn't until people in my life really backed off that I was able to find a relationship with God. Eventually, my relationship with God's not perfect. Obviously, I don't think anybody's relationship with any religion, any religious being, whatever you believe in, I don't think anybody's relationship with anything they believe in is ever perfect. And I feel like that's the hardest thing in life, is that a lot of parents want their kids to have a relationship with God that's just perfect and so great. But that's not the case, right? And you know, I only found my way through I do not pronounce that right. Spirituality, I'm just going to stop attempting. I'm just going to say I found my way to my relationship with God through my own time and just by connection, you know, right? I needed to pray for things that I wanted to pray for, not things that other people wanted me to pray for. You know, parents want you to pray for certain things, but I needed to pray for things that made me happy and made me feel good. And I was able to find my relationship with God just by it feeling good, because I had my relationship with God in my own way. And, you know, that's just what's important, is for someone to have a relationship with God, everyone's relationship with God is unique, and you can't push someone to have a relationship with God that's similar to yours. And I feel like that's one of the biggest problems in churches and religions right now, is that they want everyone's relationship with God to look the same. I feel like, at least maybe not all, but some of the churches I've gone to have tried to make it out to seem that way. And it's just toxic. It's just a toxic way of teaching religion, right? My girlfriend has been a great support system of letting me have my relationship with God in my own way, and then my relationship with God doesn't have to look like her relationship with God, and they don't need to look similar, and it's okay if I pray more or less than she does. It doesn't care who prays more or who has a more positive relationship with God. As long as you have a relationship with God, that's all that matters, and you don't need to push anybody into anything. And I feel like I've had this great conversation with my girlfriend, and it's made me much more comfortable with Christianity and with my relationship with God ever since. My girlfriend is a great support system for that. I have just stopped talking with my parents about religion altogether because it always creates a heated argument, especially with my mom, who takes God way too seriously, in my opinion. And I feel like she makes everything about the Lord and things like that, when, though you should have a good relationship with God, I feel like not every decision you make has to be God-related. There are things that you can just leave God out of. I mean, God guides you through life, sure, but he doesn't need to guide you through everything. There are some decisions that people just make on their own. And you want to know why? Because God wants you to fuck up, in a way. I know that sounds stupid, but let me explain. If God guided us through everything, how would we make mistakes? If God prevented us and stopped us from doing anything wrong, nobody would make mistakes if God guided us through everything. He wants us to screw up to become better people so that we go to him for his guidance, because he wants to guide us through tough times, right? He wants to guide you, but he wants you to mess up so that he can help you be a better person. And that's how I view it, right? I did not think this would turn into a religious podcast. I did not know I would turn into some kind of sermon through talking about alternative rock, but I guess here we are. But that's why I have a positive connection with this song, and I really love this song. I'm guessing Chris Cornell didn't write it, because Chris Cornell's never really been that much of a religious person. I'm guessing this was written more from the guys in Rage Against the Machine who formed Audioslave. But hey, it's a good song, and though Chris Cornell's not really religious, he does sing it with quite passion, and he seems to respect religion as he sings it in a very powerful way to get the message across, right? I at first had doubts that Chris Cornell even was involved in the writing process, but since he's the frontman, I can see how he did. At first, I doubted that this was even about religion, but this was on the official Song Facts website, which usually gets their information about songs through reliable resources like the musicians themselves. So I kind of have no choice but to believe it, right? At least I'm going to take it as it is. I'm going to take it as the very reliable website says. I don't believe everything I read online, especially not the Song Meanings website, because Song Meanings is usually written by people on the internet, but the Song Facts website is an Amazon company which does some pretty heavy research on songs. So I'm going to take it as it is for now. If I find out differently, then I will correct myself in another episode when I decide to talk about Audioslave again, because they have 3 albums, and I plan to review all of them, so I will get to those later. So I will correct myself if needed, if I find out any other information about this track. Even if I find some later in this episode and come back to you in 5 minutes saying, oh, I was wrong about this song, right? But yes, this song, along with Show Me How to Live, also helped me have a positive relationship with religion because, again, a lot of my positive connections to religion is through music. Some people get it through praying or reading Bibles. Like I've said earlier in this episode, my positive relationship with God is by listening to music about religion, right? That's where my positive relationship with religion comes from. By listening to bands like this, like listening to things like this song, or Christian rock bands like Skillet and Ashes Remain are where my positive relationship with religion comes from. I'm definitely going to talk about some Christian rock albums, like albums by Skillet and Ashes Remain at some point. But I guess that's for another day, because I already have the next few album reviews already planned up. I have like a little notes folder on my phone where I have a list of albums that I'm planning to get to in the near future. Like I have next episode planned and the next album review planned. The next episode of this podcast is an album review. And, I jot down as many ideas as possible into notes because I don't want to lose them, right? Anyways, let's move on to the next track. This next song, Getaway Car, I love it for many reasons. For one, it kind of gives me John Mayer vibes. It so reminds me of a John Mayer song. Like, the way the drums just slowly go through the song kind of reminds me of John Mayer. It's like, if you've ever listened to a John Mayer song, you know what I'm talking about. The drums are usually a slow beat. One drum hits and then another one comes. You hear one drum and then another. It totally reminds me of a John Mayer track, right? And it just has the guitar is just played in this slow, soulful way. It totally reminds me of a John Mayer guitar tune, right? And even the way Chris Cornell sings, it's sang with so much passion. It's beautiful. That's another thing to love about this song. There's just some beautiful passion. I can tell that when Chris Cornell's singing it, he really means it. Kind of like John Mayer. John Mayer, whenever he sings something, he sounds like he really means what he's saying. And that's the vibe I get from Chris Cornell. He sounds very serious and genuine about what he's singing. And lyrically, this song, I love it because it kind of sounds like a song to say that before anyone can get into a relationship and love anyone else, they need to take some time alone and learn to love themselves. And that's a lesson I've learned through life. Where was this song when I was younger, right? Because I think I did what every teenager used to do between the ages of, like, I want to say 13 to 16, is I would get into a relationship with someone without really understanding, that we're just too different, or that I'm just not in a good place to be in a relationship because I'm too depressed, and I would just drag the other person down emotionally, and they would have to deal with my emotions too much, and I didn't really love myself. I would see myself as ugly and worthless, and I would tell this to my partner, which would drag them down, and it just wasn't fair to them, and I just didn't realize this because I was just too young to understand, or just not mature enough to understand, right? I think we've all been there. I've dated several people in my life, but they've mostly been short-term relationships because I just wasn't ready and didn't know it until, like, the relationship was over. I've only had four genuine relationships where though I wasn't in a good place emotionally, I really loved them and, was able to get past my insecurities and get past them because I loved them, and they also helped me through my insecurities. And I was in a good place during these relationships, but there were some relationships where I just wasn't in a good place. There were only 4 relationships that I've been in where I was in a good enough place to be in a relationship, or I was in a place where I wasn't my emotionally best, but they were helping me and the relationship was stable and could have lasted if they hadn't cheated, right? And the relationship I'm in now is probably the best I've been in emotionally when it comes to an emotional state, because I'm actually in a really good place right now. So the relationship I'm in currently, things are actually pretty good, actually. Probably better than they've ever been, because while in this relationship, I'm getting therapy and I'm getting better at talking out my emotions and my problems to my partner. I used to not be great at communicating my feelings, and now I've gotten really good at it. So the relationship's actually pretty stable. But the point is, I think, where was this song when I was younger? Because probably some of my relationships could have been better if I had just heard this song. Has anybody ever had that happen to them, where they hear a song that speaks to them and then they just go, I could have used this song a while ago. Why am I just hearing it now? I've always heard Audioslave songs, but it's only recently that I've gotten more album oriented. I used to just listen to music on streaming and just kind of listen to one song and then go to the next one by another artist. But now I've gotten more album oriented lately because of this podcast. And so I'm hearing an album for what it is. And this song is just perfect. And I used to only hear the big singles, or maybe if I heard deep cuts, it was only deep cuts by my favorite bands. I know all of Nickelback's deep cuts because they're my favorite band. I know pretty much all Fall Out Boy songs. I know their deep cuts. But bands like Audioslave, bands that I just kind of I would just listen to here and there whenever they came on. Audioslave was a band that I would just listen to because it was in my recommended on Apple Music. Now I'm actually really getting into Audioslave and pretty much everything Chris Cornell based, anything Chris Cornell related, so Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, his solo career, and Audioslave, obviously. I've gotten more into listening to full albums Chris Cornell's part of, and now I'm realizing just how great some of the deep cuts are, really. And this song is no exception. It's so great. If I have a friend who is struggling with loving themselves and are rushing things like relationships, I'm going to send them this song because this song is great for them. I'm going to send this to them for sure if I come across that. This song is just great, and I feel like I could really help someone out with this song. And it can help so many people. If you are struggling with loving yourself or having some trouble in your relationship and it's coming from your end, and you just might need, if you're in a relationship where most of the problems in the relationship are coming from you because of your emotional state, take a step back. Breakups suck, but you need to understand that you're just not in a good place to be in one, right? And listen to this song. It really might help you see that. So definitely listen to Getaway Car by Audioslave, man, if you're in that state of mind right now or that point in your life. This could even go for older people. It's not just teenagers. There are some adults that just aren't in a good place to be in a relationship or not ready for it because they're too emotionally damaged and they're just not mature enough for it at the time, right? I think that can happen to anybody. This song is amazing. We got one more song left. Let's get through it so we can talk about my final thoughts because I have so many good things to say about this record. We wrap up the album with The Last Remaining Light, which is this chilling, slow, soulful song. It's like soulful rock, alternative soulful rock, but it's really slow and chilling, and the vibe is really eerie, and it almost kind of reminds you of the end of the light, or not the end of the light, the end of the world. It's like you're seeing the last of the light, though. It's like the last burning candle before the world ends. It's just so eerie, and I love it. I can't help but love this vibe this song gives off, right? I love this song, and I love this album. Let's get into my favorite tracks and my all over score. I just love this album. There's so much great stuff. There's the religious vibe stuff that can really help someone who is either a big religious person or is just somebody trying to get into religion or someone that just likes listening to Christian music. And there's some great songs in here for those types of people, like my personal favorite, Show Me How to Live, which is just some catchy sing-along Christian rock, or Light My Way, which is my personal favorite for really thinking about religion. And then there's some great stuff about loving someone else or loving yourself with songs like Getaway Car and Shadow on the Sun. There's the great opening single, Go Cheese. There's some great dark, eerie stuff on here, like The Last of the Light, the last song we just talked about, or Bring 'Em Back to Life, my favorite dark, eerie track. And there's only really a few duds in this album. I'd say there's only really one song on here that's really a dud to me, and the dud's not even that bad. I Am the Highway is a little bit boring to me. It's kind of like a dud of a song, but it's not even an awful dud. It's not even bad. I've heard worse. Like that one 5 Seconds of Summer song, either called, I think it was 18 or 16. That was really bizarre. So there's not really any song on here that's odd or anything. It's mostly good. I would give this album an 8 out of 10. Anybody who loves Chris Cornell or just loves 2000s alternative rock, post-grunge rock, stuff like Stained, Nickelback, would love Audioslave, right? I think you would definitely love this album. This is a great debut album by a great band. You should definitely check it out. My top 3 recommendations of songs. Number 1, Show Me How to Live. My second favorite, Shadow of the Sun. Absolutely love that. And number 3, Getaway Car. I really love those songs. I would definitely recommend listening to those and some other favorites. Just definitely listen to Light My Way. Definitely listen to Go Cheese. Definitely listen to all these songs. I love them all. Hypnotize. Listen to Hypnotize. It's so freaking good. Set It Off. Listen to that. That one's just a fun, shouting song. Fun to listen to. Set this fucker off. Just shout that at the top of your lungs as Chris Cornell says it. Just definitely listen to this album no matter where you are. If you're driving in your car with the windows down and you just love listening to rock in the middle of the day on the highway, pop this song on or pop on this album. Listen to it in the shower. If you're going on your daily walk for exercise, listen to it. If you're at the gym, listen to it. If you're at work and you're just in your office alone and and there's no one in the room with you and it's just you doing your work, put it on. This is a great album to collect as well. If you like collecting physical music, buy a CD copy of this. That's what I plan to do. I'm still collecting CDs. I don't have a copy of it yet, but believe me, I'm going to pick it up. I'm actually planning at the end of the year to show you guys the CD collection, and by the end of the year, I hope to have this. Definitely listen to this album. Oh, give it a listen, brother. All right? This is I'm Colton, and this has been Corruption of Colton Podcast, episode 21.